What up, you weirdos? Dave here, and I like knives and steady. There we go, steady cameras. I like knives, and today we have the Leatherman OHT. We have. Let me close it. Gotta be careful with my fingies. We have a blade that is 2 inches long, a closed overall length of 4.5 inches, a width, a width of almost 2, and a depth of 1 inch. This weighs in at a solid 10 ounces. The blades are all of 420 high carbon steel. As you can hopefully see, the blades, all of the tools are labeled. If I can grab a flashlight so you can see better. There we go. That, as you can see, is the V cutter. So you have the V cutter right there, the serrated blade on top left. That's a little flathead. There's your Phillips. And then there's your saw and regular blade. And another flathead. And your can opener. I just tried to throw my flashlight. And it turned it back on. Stop that. Thank you. Yeah, so these are... I love it when things are labeled. When all of the space is used. Leatherman, when they made this, had flat scales, and somebody in the boardroom said, "Hey, we should probably use that empty space for something," and thus it became labeled. I appreciate that. It's probably not how it happened, but I like to imagine it that way. And my favorite thing about this, one of my favorite things about this, is this V cutter. This is implemented correctly. This is how you do a strap cutter. There is minimal space. You use an oxygen tank wrench to open it. I have no need in my life of ever using an oxygen tank. But if you're an EMT, emergency medical technician, or someone like that, perhaps a police officer, perhaps a military individual, that particular tool may be useful for you. Minimal space used, and it doubles as another screwdriver. I love this. I don't use this too terribly much, but I love that this was implemented correctly. Long drivers, not entirely true. That was said mainly of the Phillips head. As you can see, you get a pretty solid shank on that. It's only 2D, which I don't generally like, but it's fine. A multi-tool isn't supposed to be a perfect implementation of everything, so a regular screwdriver is still going to be better than anything you find on a multi-tool. This is just supposed to get the job done, and I believe that that does just fine. Smaller screwdriver, bigger screwdriver, other screwdriver, there on the tip. Great pliers. Now, the story behind this, as I understand it, is Gerber with their... If I had done my homework, I would have known what model premiered this. But their MP600, their diesel, their flick, their recoil, or whatever, uses the one-handed opening technology, where the plier heads, instead of the Leatherman PST butterfly opening style, Gerber began using the out the front method. That was patented for a very long time, and only recently ran out, allowing Leatherman to try their own hand at that. And as you can see, this thing glides out just easily. There is no effort in taking this out. You can also flick it, but that's a little difficult. So just grab and it's 10 ounces does the work for you. There's an extra button on this side to help you push. These two buttons right here are what retract it. We have replaceable wire cutters, which is something that I believe should be standard on all multi-tools everywhere. This plier head is not particularly beefy. It actually looks kind of silly and out of place with how big and thick the handles are and how small the plier head is. But if that were any bigger, they would have to sacrifice from the rest of this. The blades and screwdrivers would have to be even smaller to accommodate that. So to maximize their space, unfortunately, the plier heads have to suffer. Which I understand, I don't like, but they're good for what they are, they're good for what they have to do. This is built primarily for police officers or military personnel, people of that tactical nature. This isn't directly intended for heavy use on a construction site or something like that. It's absolutely possible to use it for that, but you're not going to get as solid a grip on a heavy bolt with this plier head as you are with perhaps the rebar or super tool. So because of this, it has the weight and it has the look and the beefiness of a heavy-duty multi-tool. I would say this is more of a high-medium, if that makes sense, just because the plier heads are so comparatively small. Not flimsy by any means, but a little small. The OHT stands for one-handed tool. In my everyday life, I usually slip and call this or think of this as the OTF out the front, because that's basically what it is. This is an OTF. Leatherman's take on that design. Going back to the Gerber-Leatherman relationship, as I'm sure you are aware, because Gerber is running endless hundreds of YouTube advertisements for it. Their center drive released somewhat recently, sometime in the last couple months, and in that advertisement, they compare everything in there against the Leatherman Wave until they get to the blade, and they compare the blade on the center drive to the OHT, not to the Wave. So basically what I'm saying is be aware of the little subtle underhand tricks that companies use to try to sell stuff to you. Everyone wants your money. Everyone wants to screw you over. Just be paying attention for that, because that is hilarious and everything in that commercial is pathetic. I'm sorry, I just wanted to go on a little bit of a rant, and it kind of connected. So these saws, the blade, the serrated blade. Ow. My thumb's hurting a little bit today. These are all quite tiny. They're all much smaller than on, say, let's just keep comparing it against the Wave. They're all much smaller because the Wave simply has, although the handles on the Wave are smaller, it's what I was talking about earlier with the internal plier head that forces everything else to be compromised. So this, it has a good blade. It has a good saw and a good serrated blade, but it's just the size of it that has been compromised. So they still do their job. Just be aware of that is basically what I'm saying. Leather, and this actually comes with my favorite sheath, which is their black Molly compatible sheath right there. My favorite thing about this is that the strap, you do it in there and then you pull it up. There we go. The strap has a recurve button. The strap that I had to reach, I apologize. Stop it. Thank you. The strap that, the pouch that this is my MP400. The pouch that I usually use, because it's only $5 for my multi-tools, is this getup, which only has the single bit and then the button. So when you wear this in your pocket, all of the stress goes to this snap, which makes it much more likely to fail. I'm okay with that because this costs $5, but this pouch, all of the weight, it is dispersed because it wraps around this bottom panel here. Does that make sense? So that recurve, that doubling up of material, just makes this stronger. It is currently empty at the moment, and I have my wave on hand at the moment, because this is what I use to carry my wave in my bag. I carry wave as my backup multi-tool in my EDC bag. This stays in the drawer at home because I don't have too terrible much use for it. But this is usually the first thing that you can lock the plier heads? Remember what I said earlier about this being a button down here, or an extra thing that you can push? It's a lock. I'm terrible at doing my homework. I thought I read the page. Apparently I didn't. You can actually lock the plier heads closed, and they won't deploy. And then you twist that little bit, and they deploy. I'm terrible at this. Why are you people listening to me? All part of the grand adventure. Leatherman sells this. Leatherman sells this for $80 on their website. It comes in black and silver, both $80. The coyote, brown, or tan, whatever you want to call it, that's for around $90. Amazon sells it for $80. Walmart for $80. Academy apparently for $90. There was some issue there. I'm not entirely sure. Academy sells it for $80 and $90. Luckily for me, though, I found this at Academy with a damaged packaging. So they were selling it for $40 or maybe $50. It's possible I bought this for $50. So for that price, this is absolutely a great tool. This is a teacher of engineering and innovation. That's my favorite thing about multi-tools. That's why I love knives and multi-tools so much, is just the ingenuity and the skill and the engineering that goes into each piece. We have so much space to deal with. How many tools can we cram in there? And with the OHT, they were given one job. Make everything one-handed accessible. Obviously, some things are going to be easier to open with one hand than others, but make everything more or less one-handed accessible and make it as small as you can. And this is what they came up with. And while it's not what I need in my life, it is absolutely something that I am glad exists, and I have nothing but respect for this. So is that all I wanted to say? I think that's all I wanted to say. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Having this around my room, this is usually, if I need pliers, if I need to pull something or twist something or tighten or loosen something, this is usually one of the first things that I reach for, because it sits on top of the pile. And just that terrible demonstration. There we go. Just that quick one-handed opening of the pliers makes it the easiest, quickest thing to grab. So out of 10 stars, I give this if it's meant for you, an 11 stars. If it's not, I'm sure you can find at least a 7-star usage out of it. Try to get it for as cheap as possible. I would say that it's definitely closer to the $80. I wouldn't pay $80 for most anything, but I can absolutely understand how this is worth that, especially to those who need it and who it's meant for. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please listen below. Other than that, have a great day.